We're going to continue our discussion of special topics in bloodstain pattern analysis. The discussion today is going to be on features of bloodstains and bloodstain patterns. As a reminder that this video, including all of the videos within this series, are not sufficient to get an individual to the expertise of competency in BPA. You need to be under the guidance of a training program as well as under the guidance of a mentor. All right, let's look at this scene here. We've got a mock scene, and we can see that there's a lot that's going on. And as far as the process of bloodstain pattern analysis, we often think of the first type of conclusion being pattern identification or pattern classification. And here's just a quick jump to the types of patterns that are present within this scene. The boundaries of those patterns. We have cast-offs, we have impacts, we have transfer stains with spatter stains, we have swipes, and we also have a drip trail that's progressing to the lower right corner. But it all, in order to get to that point, it all starts with the features. And well, what do we mean by the features? It's just answering the simple question of what do you see? So if we look at this particular image here, what do you see? You might say, well, I see a zebra. Well, that zebra is actually a conclusion, and that conclusion is based on the features that you see. Think of the things that you see. You've got a mammal that's got a long neck. We've got varying stripes, black and white across the body, an elongated head, big ears. Those are the things that you're looking at to demonstrate the validity of the conclusion that this is a zebra. In the same manner, when we look at this particular pattern, for those who have experience in bloodstain pattern analysis, the conclusion is to jump to that this is a drip pattern. And again, that is a conclusion that is based off of the features that are present, the features of the bloodstains that are within this overall pattern. Now, there's a particular danger in this very automatic type of conclusion when looking at patterns or even looking at the image of the zebra, is that we can see things, jump to conclusions, and miss things that are obvious within the pattern. For example, with that zebra, did you pick up that we were missing a leg? This here's an actual three-legged zebra. And when we look at the bloodstain pattern, did you see that there was a void within the lower right corner of this overall pattern? When we jump to conclusions, this is something that we can easily miss. So how do we describe the bloodstains? So there are going to be 5 different categories that we will look at to describe the bloodstains: location, size, shape, distribution, and appearance. These are the 5 different categories of features that we're going to look through. We'll walk through each of those very quickly. So when it comes to the location is simply where are the bloodstains at? Where's the pattern at? And not just where are they at, but what are the features of that target surface that's containing the bloodstains? So it can be the floor, the wall, or the ceiling, and that can even include how far up or how far out that pattern extends. It could be on other horizontal or vertical surfaces. It could be on the tops of tables. It could be on the side of a couch. It could be on a vase. It could be on an item such as shoes or pants or a handgun. Those are the location. When it comes to the features of that target surface, is that an absorbent or non-absorbent target surface? So if we think an absorbent target surface, we're thinking of a couch with a fabric upholstery, and the non-absorbent is going to be the floor, that's such as a linoleum floor or a tile floor. The fact that a target surface could be clean or dirty can also affect the appearance of the bloodstains, as well as if this object is movable or non-movable. All of these features can affect the features of the bloodstains. And of these, probably the one that is most overlooked and most misunderstood is the difference between a non-absorbent as well as an absorbent target surface. So when we consider the location and how that can be affected, here's an image. And within this image, we have 2 different types of target surfaces. We have the non-absorbent tile, the ceramic tile, that progresses right into another room where we have carpeting. And we can see that the features of the bloodstains on the tile are completely different than the features of the bloodstains that are on the carpet. And one might consider the possibility that we have 2 different mechanisms here, and we don't. What we have is the same mechanism that is occurring as that mechanism progresses from the tile onto the carpet or vice versa. And that drastic change is because we have a highly absorbent target surface with the carpet and a smooth, rigid, non-porous surface with the tile. So we absolutely have to consider those types of features within the target surface, which is the area of location. So also when we deal with location, we're also looking at vertical versus horizontal. So we're going to use this particular pattern here for some of the other pattern or other types of features. Here we've got a pattern that's going to be on a wall. So besides the location, the next area of features that we're going to discuss is the size. Now size can be broken down into two different areas. We can have the size of the overall pattern as well as the size of the individual stains within that pattern. So some of us come from places where we only use the metric units when we're describing lengths. Some come from places where we're using inches or yards. So when we're dealing with the size of the overall pattern, that can be described in either metric or non-metric units. So we can describe it in centimeters or meters, or we could also describe the overall size in inches as well as in feet. However, when we're dealing with the size of the individual stains within that pattern, those small circular to elliptical stains, we're going to be dealing with metric. And that's generally reported out as a range. So let's go back to this pattern on this wall. We're going to deal with the overall size of this pattern. That is the first area. We're going to have a length as well as a width. So we can look at the length of this overall pattern, that it progresses from, we're looking at about 10 inches tall. And then when we look at the width of that pattern, the width of this pattern is about 7 inches wide. So those are, and clearly we can see that we have additional stains that are outside of those boundaries. What we're describing here is the most concentrated area of staining, and that's going to be our size. But we also need to look at the size of the individual stains within this pattern. And as we look at the individual stains, we're going to have a wide range of stains. We're going to have some that are very, very small. In this particular pattern, they're going to be significantly less than 1 millimeter wide, probably even significantly less than 0.5 millimeter wide. And we're also going to have some that range up to about 4 to 5 millimeters wide. So we need to be careful in saying the most common stain size, because in virtually all spatter patterns, the most common stain size is going to be the very small stains. What jumps out at us a lot of times is the larger stains, and we pick up on larger stains, a lot of large stains. That means that's the most common size. But if we were actually to graph this out and graph out most spatter patterns, the majority of stains within spatter patterns are going to be the smaller stains. So we've dealt with location, we've dealt with size, now we're going to deal with the shape. And again, this is the shape of the individual stains within that pattern. So there's two different ways of describing the shapes. You can have a reference to the standard geometric shapes. We can deal with circular, elliptical, we can deal with rectangular, we can deal with, if we have an oval shape, we can deal with that. Or it can be an irregular shape if it's not similar to a geometric shape. Now this doesn't deal with the shape of the overall pattern. That's going to be the distribution. We're dealing with the shapes of the individual stains within that pattern. So with this particular pattern here, we've got two different areas. We've got the central area, which is going to be our parent stain, and we're going to describe the shape of that. And then we're going to have the stains that are surrounding the parent stain. So when we deal with the shape of the parent stain, the green arrow is pointing to this larger part of this parent stain. And this really doesn't have a standard geometric shape. This is going to be an irregular shape stain. We can see some circular extensions coming out of it, but this overall parent stain is going to be irregular. However, right next to it, we have this large circular stain. So we've got those two types of things within this central area. As we extend to the outside, we can see that we have two different types of stains and these small stains that are surrounding it. We've got circular as well as elliptical stains. If we look at the light blue circles, we can see that those light blue circles are around small stains that have a genuinely circular appearance to them, whereas the green circles around those stains that have an elliptical shape to those. So that's how we can break down the shape of a pattern. When it comes to the distribution, this here is kind of the shape or the appearance of the overall pattern. And the most common thing when we discuss about distribution is the arrangements of stains within the overall pattern. and how those stains are lined up. So here we have two patterns in this particular image. If we look at the pattern that is on the left-hand side, if we were to draw lines around the boundaries of that, those lines are going to be parallel. This here is often described as a linear distribution, where all of the stains kind of line up in this series. Whereas if we were to draw boundaries around the pattern that's on the right-hand side, we're going to get kind of a triangular shape to it. And that triangular shape, if we were to look at the directionalities of those individual stains, those directionalities are all going to show that they come back towards that point that's in the lower left corner. And this here is a radiating distribution. So most common, we're going to have a linear distribution, a radiating distribution. We can also have an irregular, or there's a random distribution. But in addition to the arrangement of individual stains, distribution also has a lot of other functions to it. It is the arrangement of features of stains within a pattern. So here we have two parallel lines of linear distributions of circular to elliptical stains. So that is the arrangement of individual stains within the overall pattern. However, let's look at the arrangement of features of stains within that pattern. So let's look at the lower line, and as we progress from the lower left to the upper right within that line, we're going to see multiple different things. One of the things that we're going to see is that the shape of those stains changes. In the lower right, it's circular. In the lower left, it's circular. As we progress along the line, moving to the right-hand side, we see that the shape of those stains gets more and more elliptical. One of the other things that we see is as we move from the left to right, that the general size of those stains gets smaller and smaller as we move from left to right. And the final thing that we see is that the space between the individual stains gets larger and larger as we move from left to right. So those are also things that are involved in this concept of distribution. We also have this concept of appearance. And appearance has a number of different things. It's kind of this big catch-all phrase. When we're looking at the appearance of a blood stain, we're looking at the edge characteristics of the stain. Are they smooth? Are they jagged? Are they scalloped? What's the coloration of the blood? And this also includes the consistency. Does it look like whole blood, or does it have a lighter color to it? Do we have various colors within the interior of the blood stain? Do we have clots or serum stains in our clots? You could describe as clots, or sometimes I call them solid masses. Or we could have bubble rings, alterations, and also within this category of appearance is the presence of other materials within the overall pattern. And that can be apparent hairs, apparent fibers, it could be bone fragments, it could be components of firearms, other things that are within that bloodstain pattern. So here we have two patterns. And if we look at the appearance, let's look at the one on the left-hand side. We've got a large irregular shaped stain. If we look at the edge characteristics, we don't have a consistent edge characteristic. On the top part of the stain, we have a lot of spines or streaks that are extending outward from that. If we look at the bottom portion of the stain, we don't have the same number of spines or streaks, but we have it's an uneven, it's not a smooth edge. If we look at the coloration of the blood that's on the interior of the stain, it varies. It's a lighter coloration towards the top. As we move to the bottom, we have some darker coloration to it, but there's no consistency to that. It really is an irregular shape. If we look to the image on the right-hand side, we've got a lot of circular stains, but we also have a lot of irregular shaped stains. Some of these, when we deal with the coloration, some of them look like whole blood, have that dark red-brown appearance to them. Others have a very lighter coloration to them, almost looks like a dilute appearance to them. We also have a couple of other features that are here. We've got the common phrase, or at least the phrase that I use, is ligament strands that connects some of these circular stains to each other. Some of these ligament strands are thin, some of them are thick. And if we were to zoom in and look close, we would also see bubble rings or air bubbles within a number of these circular to elliptical stains. These are the different types of things that we describe at or look for when we're dealing with the appearance of a bloodstain pattern. So that's a quick run through of how we describe the features of bloodstain patterns. And one of the things that the why behind those features is the reason why we see these features is because those are a direct result of the forces that are involved in how that pattern or how that stain was created, as well as the target surfaces, and to some extent also some other non-blood materials that might be mixed in with the blood within those patterns. So that's why we see those features, because of forces and target surfaces and other materials. Another thing that we need to remember is that when we get to the concept of classification, which is answering the question of how was this pattern created or how was this stain created, reliable classification methods are rooted in thorough documentation of those features to use those features to help drive the classification. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. My hope is that you have learned something with this, and I encourage you to keep watching for other videos within this series. And you can always contact me if you have any questions. You can see my email address on the bottom.